I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you're feeling really bad because you just failed at something, this is the best advice I've received on how to actually cope with it. Especially if you're really ambitious and super hard on yourself. Every time you fail and you feel the pain and you get through it, you are building your tolerance against failure, which is by far the biggest barrier to success. Because whilst consistency is the key to success, you need to tolerate failure in order to stay consistent. I remember my first major failure was when I didn't get a return offer for an internship I did, and literally 90% of the cohort got offers. And then for the rest of the year, I proceeded to get rejected until I finally got 3 offers in one go. But because of that experience, my tolerance has grown to the point that I am now able to keep pushing towards my goals because I am now used to that feeling. It's the exact same as willpower. The more you use it, the more you fail, and the better you get at failing, the more likely you are to stay consistent in order to reach your goals. I know you're probably feeling really shitty right now, but just know that this experience will be the key to your success later on.
Hello everyone, this is Emmanuel Cook. We will be reacting to a new video today, so make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe down below, and let's get into the video.
What is it about I don't want to start because I don't want to fail? Huh? Can we shift our relationship with failure? I know there's some people that's like, oh, it's not an L, it's a lesson. Or we try to reframe failure so much. And I believe in context, that is the truth. But sometimes we just fail. Can we be honest? Sometimes we just fail. And yes, there were lessons. Yeah, there were things that I learned along the way. But I think when we try to dress up failure so much and reframe failure so much that it makes us feel like failure is this bad thing. I failed. Like, is it not okay? And don't get me wrong, I do think there is space for reframes depending on the context. But I think when we do it so much, it makes us feel like failure is the villain. Okay, I hope you feel me on this. Can shift your relationship with failure, and then it won't be so big. All right, friend, I'm glad we had this talk.
Here's a successful person's guide to dealing with failure. What separates successful people from people who have failed are not usually how many times they failed, but how they deal with that failure. All right, step number 1, you want to make sure that when you fail, it doesn't become part of your reputation. You do not want to have the reputation of a failure. So you know that guy screaming and crying that he failed his test and his parents gonna kick him out of his house? That guy probably has the reputation of a failure. Instead, what you want to do is don't draw attention to the fact that you failed. Draw attention to what you learned from that experience and what you're going to be doing next. Tip 2 is don't let failure affect your confidence unless you want to be less confident. If you failed because you were too egotistical to look at things from a rational point of view, then you probably do want to lower your confidence a bit. But if you were normally confident and it just didn't work out, don't let that shake your confidence. Number 3 is you should never fail at the same thing multiple times in a row. So obviously, if you were to start a business, fail the first time, that doesn't mean you don't start a second business. That means you need to learn from your first experience and not just do the same thing again. If you failed a test, right? You can obviously fail another test in the future, but don't fail it because of the same reasons you failed the first test. Because if you use failure as a learning experience, you realistically can never fail because you won even when you did fail.
I do not care how many times you've failed or gotten rejected, or even if you're at the lowest of lows, because believe me, I have been there. Get back up. I know you see all these students who got accepted into top universities, students with 4.0 GPAs, students who are in the honors program, students with the highest AP scores on every single exam they take. You just feel so ashamed because how are they doing it? You don't understand. I'm going to tell you a secret. They wouldn't be doing it if they were you. Everyone is on a different playing field. It's not equal. So stop comparing yourself in your academic journey to others. The truth is, a lot of successful students, not all of them, but the majority of them, have the resources that every student deserves to be successful, but not every student has. So of course, the student who is financially stable, who lives in a happy family with both her parents, who's never been through anything in her life, is able to have all these great accomplishments and academic achievements. To whom much is given, much is expected. And then you're over here struggling, barely able to pass your classes because maybe you don't have anyone to help you, don't have the proper resources or guidance, you have no idea what you're doing, but you're still doing it. And maybe you might be financially supporting your family as a student, working a full-time job. Maybe you don't even have a room. Maybe you're sleeping on the couch. You are struggling to pass your classes. But guess what? You should be so proud of yourself for even attempting your education under those circumstances. No student should have to have adult responsibilities while going through their education, but that's a reality for so many students, and it's not fair, but that is how life is. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to take you longer. It's going to be a lot harder compared to most students, but it is possible. You might face failure, you might face rejection. Always remember, failing doesn't make you a failure, giving up does. Thank God college admissions does a comprehensive review. A lot of colleges, like the UCs, top colleges, do a comprehensive review, meaning they review students in full. They review students according to their individual experience, their individual background. So they're going to expect more from the first student who has a 4.0 GPA and has high income family versus you. They're going to look at you and say, what did you do with what you had? And what did you learn from your experience? Both are just as admirable. Graduation rate for first generation students is extremely low. I believe it's like 14%. If you're a first generation college student, think of how huge of an accomplishment that is to be able to finish and complete your degree when so many students aren't able to.
This video is for anyone that feels like they're currently failing. So if you feel like you're succeeding and winning, honestly, good for you. I'm so happy for you, but this video ain't for you. Okay, now that it's just us that are really hard on ourselves, hi, baby. I'm gonna start off by saying, a little cheesy, bear with me, we get more intense, but congratulations on being such a fucking badass that you actually chase your goals, chase them hard enough that you experience failure. Bro, do you know how much courage, do you know how large of cojones it takes to actually take the step towards potential failure? Most people don't even take that first step towards their dreams and goals because they're so scared of failure. Which reminds me of this quote by Matthew McConaughey. I just recently listened to a podcast by him, and he was talking about all the failures he's experienced before he reached success. And he was saying that the people that, while you failed, they're like, nah, boo-boo, you failed, like, see, it wasn't gonna work, blah, 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 like, whether it's hate comments, your family, whatever, they're not in the arena, and they're not in the arena for a reason. Again, this is all a Matthew McConaughey quote. He was saying because the people that have been in their arena, are in their arena, are getting into the arena, would never fucking be like, you failed. They'd rather be like, hey man, been there, done that, keep on moving. That was a pat on the back. Which brings me to my favorite failure quote by Will Smith. Fail forward. When I first started pursuing music, I was so fucking terrified of failing that like all I could do was incessantly listen to motivational speeches to get me through the anxiety. So one of them I listened on repeat was Will Smith's motivational speech. You can find it on YouTube somewhere. And basically it just yells in it the whole time being like, so you failed? Guess what? All that is a messenger of what doesn't work. All it is a lesson. All it is a speed bump. So fail forward. Fail forward. You fail, keep moving forward. Like, isn't it interesting that we perceive failure as this like detrimental, world-ending, embarrassing thing when in reality all failure is a lesson? Not to fucking mention that there is no success without failure. You cannot succeed without prior failures first. Which sucks ass. I'm gonna validate that. It doesn't matter if you're Will Smith, Matthew McConaughey, an artist just trying to start their artist career, it always fucking feels like shit to fail. But it feels a lot less shitty when you remind yourself your failures are part of the process. This is part of the process, baby. Anyways, I've been quite hard on myself recently and feeling this way. So when this happens, which happens quite often because I'm a fucking musician, when that happens, I always give myself this spiel and it always realigns me. So I hope this helped at all. So just remember, you are fucking badass for chasing your goals, for even putting yourself in the arena, okay? You are a badass. And failure is beautiful. Failure is how we learn. Failure is part of the process. How exciting. I know it feels like shit, but it is exciting. So fail fucking forward, baby. You got this. I have so much faith in you.
Properly deal with underperforming or failing at something. I thought of this in the shower the other day. First, you need to figure out the what, the how, and the why. So what, in simple terms, what happened? How, in simple terms, how did that happen? And then why is like the deeper reasoning either within yourself or your preparation or examples. First, the what. For me recently, the what was missing the ACC 800 meter final by one spot. The how. How did that happen? Sitting on the leader, going into the third lap, did not make a move, and then she slowed the pace down a lot. That made our third lap a lot slower, and then my kick the final lap was not enough to get me the time qualifier. Then let's go into the why. Why did this happen? This happened because I put too much trust in someone else during my race, and I didn't believe in myself enough to go make that bold move the third lap. Using that why is how you create your plan. So you use the why to figure out what you need to work on. Your plan as to how you'll work on that, what needs to change, and then keep using what happened as your motivation, your reminder. Keep reminding yourself of your frustration.
Let's talk about how to cure the fear of failure. So babies are born with two fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Every other fear that we adapt is usually placed on us by a parent, or it is a learned or modeled behavior. So specifically with something like a fear of failing, we have defined in our brain a series of events happening or not happening or some sort of result and labeling it as a failure. But true or not true, failure is a choice. It's not something that happens to you, it's something you choose. So for example, I could label my divorce as a failure in my marriage, but that was a choice I made. That was also a choice my ex made, even though he was against it, but he didn't choose to do the things that needed to happen in the marriage to make it work and to make me want to stay. Therefore, he chose to not do the things that that we needed for a successful marriage, and same with me. So we both made the choice to not have the marriage work. You can also reframe failure as your greatest tool for learning. So that was also the case for me, is that having a marriage for 10 years and the way that we ran our marriage and even the way that we got into dating and the relationship we had and all of the behaviors and all of the tools, I am the best version of myself because of that experience. So I don't actually label it as a failure because I had a good marriage for a period of time and we tried very hard for very long, and so I am labeling that as a success. I am also labeling who I've become along the journey and how I'm able to help and serve others through the mindset and the tools and the things that I had to go through and the trauma and me on the other side of it as a success. So to think that failure is actually detrimental to who you want to become isn't also serving you, because a lot of people, the results and the things that you admire about people around you, chances are they failed at it a lot of times before they ever got to the result that you're now experiencing. So the two ways to kick fear of failure to the curb are either redefine what failure is, so nothing is labeled a failure and it's your choice whether you fail at the thing you're defining as a failure or not, or look at failure as benefiting you, that you're either going to get the result you want or the lesson you need, but either way, you win. And hey, my name is Tara and I'm on a mission to create a self-aware army because it's lonely in these self-aware streets.
A quick reminder, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and let's continue the video.
Two ways you can deal with fear of failure. You can let it control you. Probably not the best option, but it's an option. Or you can push through it. Sorry. Those are your choices. If you're stuck in your job, if you're stuck in your career, if you're stuck in your life and you want to get unstuck, that's what I help people with. But it's going to require you to do something uncomfortable. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. Let me know in the comments what you're stuck on, and I'll send you a message. I'll do what I can to help. I can be like that annoying friend who pushes you to do things that you know you should, but you just don't want to. I'll be that guy. And if you're not ready for that, I totally get it. I've had plenty of times in my life, maybe today even, where I'm not quite ready for that. But if you're ready, if you know that you want a little bit of a nudge to make that next step, let's chat.
If right now everything feels like it's failing and there's nothing good happening to you, you need to listen to this. Trust me, you need things to fail. You need things to absolutely cock up for you to be able to sustain when successful things happen. I don't think many people talk about the pressures and the weight that you're burdened with when success comes. Now, yes, it's great. It's so exciting and you should celebrate the success that is brought into your life. However, without all of the messes and the failures and the things that have gone wrong, you mentally wouldn't be able to cope with the success. All the energy that's needed to continue to grow your business, to grow your career, to create a really amazing, beautiful relationship. All of those things that are needed are only things that you learn from when you fail at something beforehand. My company has gone up and down, up and down, up and down, and it always probably will. But when it goes up, it's only because it went down so far that I can actually mentally manage and cope with the stress to keep the momentum going and to keep me going whilst going through this extremely exciting time.
And it works the other way. It's the exciting moments, the successful moments that keep me going.
Because in the words of the great Miley Cyrus, life's a climb, but the V's great.
Dealing with failure. We all fail in life at various things. But what I would say is just, you have to keep on trying. You just got to keep on going. There's just no way around it. The only guarantee of failure is if you really give up. If you just stop trying. That's really it. That is your guarantee of failure, is if you give up. But if you continue to try, you fail, but you try something new and you may succeed. Who knows? But you will never know until you try again. That's it. That's really it. But as for me, I have had numerous failures in various aspects of my life. But at the end of the day, the thing that matters is that if you eventually fail to success, if you eventually succeed, because one day you will. If you keep on trying, one day you will get there. You will get there, trust me. And then once you're there, you fail to success. That is how all entrepreneurs become extremely successful. That is exactly how. They try, they fail, they try, they fail, try, succeed. That's it.
Here's to remind you that your failures show that you're right on track. Stop accepting that you're not where you want to be because it didn't work out. You're being redirected. Stop thinking that you leaving that old job to pursue a new dream was the wrong thing to do. You're being leveled up. Stop believing that you leaving that relationship was the only relationship and the best that it could be. You are leveling up and attracting your best partner. You see, whenever you need or want something more, it's because you already have it. A different version of you already has it. And courage rewards the brave. And the brave are the ones that are out here, and it looks like they may be suffering, but they're growing through the new levels that are getting to them to where they need to be. Your failures aren't a failure, it's a step. The things that fell beside you had to go because you opened up a space for the new to arrive. Remind yourself of your power and stop standing in the sense of, I can never have it. You're standing in your power, and that's what it is. Believe that what's for you will come to you with ease, and it stays, because it will. There is no failures, there's only lessons, and keep going.
You're not a failure, you've just been labelled wrong. The other day I was talking to my dad, right? And I just happened to get onto a part of the conversation where we were talking about walking around feeling like you're a failure when you haven't like hit certain targets or goals that either you've expected to hit or like people expect you to reach. And then these were like in front of me on the desk, and I felt them like being highlighted, and I really felt God's just like putting me to use them as part of an example. These are two cakes, right? First of all, they bang, but that's not the point. So this is a chocolate cake and this is a vanilla cake. This is what we can see, right? But if someone had switched the labels, you would say that this is the nastiest vanilla cake that you've ever tasted, and this is the nastiest chocolate cake that you've ever tasted. We'd go around cussing the cake, saying this ain't even chocolate. Based on that fact, it will be like it's just a rubbish chocolate cake, not knowing that someone down the line has switched the labels. You're not a failure for starters, and I think we need to reframe the way that we see failure. You can't be a failure, you can fail at something. The second thing is, we should be going by what the Bible, what the Word of God says about who we are, and basing our life and failures and success on that. We, as a child of God, can't fail. Once we give our life to Christ and we're adopted into the family, that's it. Like, we're always going to be a child of God. So in that respect, the only thing that you can do is mislabel yourself. You can't fail with God on your side. Basically, the Bible says if God is for us, who can be against us? I say that to say, sometimes we really need to basically adjust what we're hearing, what's going into our ear canals, because faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. So you believe what you hear, and that goes for about yourself. If you constantly are around people or situations that speak into this idea that you're a chocolate cake when you're really a vanilla cake, or for my sake, people telling me I'm a vanilla cake when I'm a chocolate cake, it doesn't make sense. Adjust the people that you're around, what you're hearing, and go off that. Go into the word. Even Google
scriptures, what God says about me, and write them down, recite those, and watch your frame of mind change. You're not a failure, you've just been mislabeled.
So one of the things that I think is most frustrating about medical school is the stigma that comes around failure. Now, failure is a very inevitable part of life. Everyone has experienced failure and everyone will experience failure. But for some reason, when you get into the medical sphere, everyone looks at failure as like the ultimate scarlet letter, dunce cap. Like, there's a lot of shame around it. And I don't know, maybe that's just my institution and I go to a toxic institution, I don't know. But I think that's actually pretty widespread. I mean, if you think about the emphasis that they put on like passing your board exams, and if you don't pass, so many programs just automatically reject you, and there's a lot of pressure on med students to pass every single board exam that they take on the first try, or else there's, you know, a lot of consequences after that. It really narrows your choices down, which can be super frustrating and frightening. Like, what if I don't want to do X specialty, but then the only one to accept me if I failed a step exam? And obviously the easiest answer is like, well, just prepare well and don't fail, and that's great. But sometimes life happens, and even if you don't fail a step exam, you might fail, you know, a school exam. The way my school was set up, you could fail the first exam, do a retest, and then if you failed the retest, then you would have to remediate, and the remediation would go on your transcript. Now, I've been fortunate enough to not have to remediate, and I've had to retest one exam, and then there was another class where I failed like 2 exams, but there were 3 exams, and the 3rd exam was weighted the heaviest, so I was able to pick my grade up at the end. But still, things happen. So I recently wrote a blog post, you can check it out in the link at MillenniumEducated.com, about what to do when you fail a test in medical school. And I don't think that this is something that's talked about often, but it needs to be, because it creates a lot of distress and anxiety when you fail an exam. The exam that I had to retest, I was like going through the end of my relationship and just couldn't bring myself to study. And I literally failed it by 1 point. So I was literally like, oh. But anyways, you know, I felt a lot of anxiety on every single test I took after that, because once you get that you didn't pass score, you just know it's a possibility, and that just kind of hangs over you. But you have to find a way to overcome those negative feelings in order to make sure you don't keep failing tests, because one failed test is like, okay, multiple failed tests, it becomes very problematic, and people start questioning your ability to become a functioning physician. So my advice when you fail an exam comes in, I think, 7 steps on my blog post. So my very first step is to feel your feelings. After failing a test, you might experience anger, sadness, disappointment, frustration. You don't care. I'm jealous of those people. I did not feel that. I felt frustrated and annoyed, especially because it was only by 1 point. But whatever those feelings are, give yourself space and time to feel them. I think a lot of times, especially me, because I have a hard time like expressing my emotions to other people, you want to kind of like bottle it up and be like, I'm fine. But really, you're not fine. You're feeling some type of way about the fact that you have failed this exam. So I recommend that you take your time after you get your result to feel whatever you need to feel. Even if it's 10 minutes of you going to cry in the car and come back, you've at least put that out there, and you're able to let it go. You're not bottling it up. You're not ruminating over it. You're not sitting there on it. You are you're feeling those feelings and hopefully giving yourself a little bit of a relief. But there's a caveat to that. Sometimes we can spiral and feel our feelings to a point of just being unrealistic. Like, we tie up our self-worth and how we perform on these exams, and we're like, I'm so unworthy. I'm never going to get into this person. I'm never going to do this. I don't deserve to be that. And like, you're doing too much. Stick to the facts. I failed an exam. I didn't prepare adequately. I missed X, Y, and Z points. Next time I take this exam, or next time I take an exam, I know that I need to do this. Period. If you have to cry in between that, no judgment from me. I like to cry. I feel a lot better afterwards. But keep it there. Don't start going in circles and spiraling to this point where you are like having some mental health crisis or breakdown because you've turned a situation into this monumental reflection of who you are. There has to be an uncoupling of your self-worth and how you feel about yourself and the things that you deserve, and your performance on exams, because those two things don't correlate. Step 2, identify where you went wrong. If you just try to go into that exam and not change anything, you're probably going to get the same result. So you need to really reflect on, were there content areas? Was it your test taking strategies? Was it your life situations going on? Whatever it was, figure out what were some of the causes of why you failed that test. And if you truly don't know, then you probably need to go talk to the person who gave the test, because they'll be able to say, here are the content areas you struggled in, here's where I think you could use some help, etc. After you've identified your shortcomings, the third thing that you want to do is make a plan. I always say that, well, I don't always say, I stole this from like the internet, but it was like a dream without a wish. A dream without a plan is just a wish. Yeah. So if you dream to pass the exam, but you don't put any work behind it, well, honey, that's just a wish. And the last thing you want to do is be taking an exam on prayers and a wish. So whatever your shortcomings were, find ways to address them. If you have bad test anxiety and it makes you nervous, then you need to go get help from a learning specialist or for someone else who's dealt with learning or from test anxiety, and figure out how they overcame that and how you can help relax yourself before the next exam. Maybe you need to take more practice exams in test-like environments so that you're preparing for the game. For those athletes, you get what I mean. If you're struggling in content, then maybe you need to go study not the content that you get, but the content that you hate, that you loathe, and that you avoided until test day, and there was just too much of that content on the test for you to pass. Go talk to that professor. I know you hate them. I know they're the worst. But in a one-on-one situation, I promise you it will always work out. I've had a couple of C's turned B's, even a D turned C, because I went and sat in that professor's office. If you need a better study schedule, if you need to put your phone on Do Not Disturb, if you need to cut some people off until you take it, you need to do that stuff, because you need to pass these exams, so you have to identify what are the barriers to you doing that. And if you need an accountability buddy, then tell somebody what your plan is. And don't be mad when they're like, I thought you said you wasn't going to do blah, 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 blah. You need to be like, yeah, you're right, and get back on your grind. Step 4, and this is probably the hardest one, ask for help. Sometimes you just don't know, and other people know more than you. Lean on those people, especially if you can trust them. Sometimes medical school is a little weird because you just want to keep failures and hardships to yourself, because you don't want anyone else talking about your business like it's tea. I get it. But I have classmates who are much better students than I am, and I go to them and say, how did you study for X, Y, and Z? How are you getting this grades? How are you doing this? And they tell me what they're doing, and I incorporate. One of my very good friends in med school told me she didn't use note cards the first semester of med school. I thought she was insane, and I adopted her approach, and it changed my life. So listen to what other people are saying and see if it can work for you. Ask your professors for help, like I said. Ask the learning specialist or your academic advisor. Ask all of those people for help, because I promise you they can provide you with very valuable guidance. After you've asked for help and you've made a plan, now it's time to do the work to improve. All of that sounds good when it's written out and you're like, I am ready. But if you just go home and lay in bed for 4 hours and scroll on TikTok watching these videos instead of studying, what you need to be doing, then you're actually not going to make any improvement or make the changes necessary to improve. So after you've made the work, you've asked for help, you've done all these things, it's now time to do the work. Steps 6 and 7 are kind of tied together, but 1 is building your confidence back up. After you fail an exam, you feel so unconfident in your ability to answer questions correctly and to make it through an exam. But that's obviously a part of the problem. And if you let that keep spiraling, you're going to talk yourself out of the right answers more often than not. I advise against going back and changing answers unless you know for sure, I misread this question, I misread the answer choices, I forgot, but then I remembered another question gave me the answer. Unless you have bona fide proof that what you chose was wrong and the right answer is the right answer, do not change it. More than likely, your first mind is the right answer. You've got to trust your instinct. So take practice exams, answer a bunch of practice questions so that way you can build your confidence back up that you know the material. Do it honestly, do it timed, do it without your material in front of you. You've got to really practice like it's game day so that way when you actually sit down on that test, you know, okay, I got this. I might have slipped up a little bit before, but we bounced back. And then, like I said, 6 and 7 are tied together. So 7 is let the failure go. It happened. There's nothing you can do about it. Move on. And I think what a lot of people value about me and my medical school application, and part of the reason I think I got into medical school is because I was able to look at my failure, let it go, and grow from it. I wasn't like I'm sitting here 6 years later talking about, I almost went to med school, but blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, I saw what my shortcomings were. I addressed them, and I told the admissions committees about that. And they were like, this girl has grit. This girl really wants this. She's able to battle through adversity. And that's what you have to do. Failing an exam is just adversity. Battle through it with a plan, build your confidence back up, and let it go. If you have any more questions about med school, give me a follow. Check out my blog in the link, melanameeducated.com.
Dealing with failure and how I've dealt with failures this year. Let's talk about it. So, over the last few months, I've had two career/personal failures happen. And I mean, what really is a failure? Because I think everyone defines failure differently. And I've really had to sit in these feelings of failure and like work through what it feels like to feel like I failed. And I don't think people speak enough about failing and that it's okay to fail, and that just because something didn't work out or succeed, it doesn't mean that your whole life is a failure, or that you're a bad person, or that you're not good at what you do. It's purely a part of the process and a part of learning and a part of growing as a person and as a business owner and things like that. And I was knocked by these feelings of like failure this year, and it's just so interesting because I don't think I've felt those feelings for like a very long time or before. And I said to my best friend, I feel like such a failure, and she gave me such words of guidance and encouragement. And it's basically from this quote that I've posted on Instagram before, but I'm going to read it. Basically, what she said to me is, I know it sucks, but it isn't failure. It's all lessons in build. She went on to say, even if you put in 110%, you won't reap the results of it immediately. And she brought me back to this quote that she had sent me and said, remember this, because this is one of those moments of relentless reiteration and the magic will happen. She said it's one of those moments of relentless reiteration that no one sees and only you feel. And even though it feels like failure, it's not. It's just all part of the process. And I spent this last weekend like really sitting with these feelings of failure and kind of just acknowledging them and also being grateful for them, because it's in moments like that that you can find your strength and think about positive things and remember why you do what you do, why you love what you do, and that you are growing and you are only human and you can only do your best. And this is like not a self-help video at all, but I just think that people don't speak about failure enough and like what are those feelings of failure, because everyone's feelings of failure or what they determine to be failure will differ. And yeah, mine were two pretty big things, and it was hard, but you know, you have to get up every day and you have to just brush it off and focus on the positive. And amongst the failures are these huge moments of glory and feelings of growth and achievement, and that is what you need to focus on. And like, swallow the failure, mark it as a chapter in your book, and carry on. And that's honestly what I'm just trying to do.
Maybe you're like me. Maybe you have a hard time telling people when you're struggling because you feel like you're failing them. Because that's how I feel. I will not reach out to anybody. One, because that was like how I was taught to deal with things all as a kid. It's like, go sit in your room, come out when your emotions are settled. Absolutely, I'll manage them on my own. No worries. I don't need anybody. And two, I don't want to feel like I'm failing anybody. Because, you know, I come across sometimes, and I can be such a joyous person, and I can find the beauty, and I see the wonder in things, and I think it is such a gift to exist. But I also feel pain, and I have also suffered things, and I also need comfort. But I don't know how to ask for it. So that leaves me in a really weird spot that I've been trying to work out of, which is just learning to ask for help, I literally don't do it. I don't do it because I feel like a failure. And that's so weird. That's such a weird thing to think. Because when other people ask me for help, I jump. I'm like, yes, of course, please give me the opportunity to show you I love you by helping you. But I don't let other people do that for me. Interesting. I'm just scared of being perceived as failing in their eyes. Like I don't meet some standard or some expectation that they've set, which is not mine to uphold as it is. But it just then leaves me feeling very alone. And I'm working through this. I'm trying. I guess in some way this is me talking about it, but technically I'm here sitting alone, and I do have the option to never post this, but I am trying. I'm genuinely trying. So I'm going to hit the silly little post button and just at least know that maybe my words are heard in some way. I've at least heard them and put them out in some different way. I'm not doing the same thing over and over again. I'm trying something new. Because this sucks. But it's okay. And it's okay to ask for help. You're not failing. You're not failing by asking for help. You're not failing by telling people what you're going through. Like, if you're feeling pain and you have gone through something that sucks, share it. Like, it's a part of your story. What the heck? We get so... I just get scared of people's judgments, but I know I wouldn't judge them, so I need to look at myself with that same lens. Like, I would lovingly hold space and be like, please share with me what you've been through. I want to hear, I want to learn, I want to listen, I want to be your friend, but why don't I do that for myself? Interesting. Very interesting.
If you haven't struggled with failure at least once in your life, then you are not challenging yourself hard enough. There's this quote that always stuck with me when I was really going through it, and it's, failure is not the opposite of success, it is part of the success. The only failure is giving up. So make sure you get back up on your feet, and I promise you will learn what resilience truly is if you do this. I have failed more times than I can count. And now looking back, I'm actually really thankful that it happened, because even though I thought it was the absolute end of the world when it did happen to me more than once, now I'm like, I am the person that I am today because of all of those things that happened. And the way that I got back up and pushed myself so hard to succeed is what made me such a strong person, and that is invaluable to me. Everything will be okay. If you fail, just get back up. That's literally all that matters.
Hey, I want to share how I deal with failures. I have my share, and so many of them. No agents ever pick up my first book, and now I have no agents, 100% failures. I got fired several times, definitely failures. And I create a lot of videos nobody watch. Major failure. Here's how I deal with it. Number one, let it soak. The motion to process itself. I don't suppress it. You can't. Just let it be. Number two, nobody cares. But honestly, if you look around, nobody really cares about your feelings and the failures. They only care about theirs. Number three, find positive nuggets in your failures. When agents rejected my book, I went back to rewrite. After 2 or 3 rounds of rewrite, my book is actually better. So find that silver lining. Learn from my mistake, laugh about it, and understand that nobody cares. All right, take care. Bye.
I appreciate you guys watching the video today. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.